How many
Recording in progress.
how many people on Zoom? Okay. Hello, how are you? This is Rudy Lozano. I'm the real estate broker for Premier Realty Group Platinum, the PRG Platinum. Thank you for joining us in person as well as on Zoom. Today we're going to cover the NAR forms specific to the compensation. But I'm just going to recap our training week. On Mondays, I cover CMAs and listings on the importance of selling value and take on listings at 6%. Um, as well as on Tuesday, I cover a contract from beginning to end. Last week we did FHA. This week we did conventional. And next week we'll probably do VA. Um, and of course, I'm changing the presentations based on whatever policy is out there, the conversations I'm having with title companies, underwriters, um, and just guidelines being changed. Um, but on Wednesday, I'm covering the representation forms and the compensation forms. So that way you guys have examples, have scripts, as well as our policy um, on the compensation. Okay. Uh, as well as on Thursday, I'm covering the financing piece specific to the contract that was covered on Tuesday. So if the contract was conventional, so tomorrow on Thursday, we're going to be covering all sorts of conventional options. For the buyer, you guys need to be familiar. I'm not expecting for you guys to be loan officers, but when you're stuck and you're trying to finagle a deal, I listen uh, to many of you. I take your calls on during the day, after hours, and weekends, and you know, how do I structure my deal? Even though the deal might be with a different lender, I'll always talk to you about mention down payment assistance. You know, is there a grant? You know, what are their options, and you need to know what they are. So the more that you know about the financing piece, you'll be able to direct your client or just open up options for them. Okay. And then, of course, on Friday, um, because we have a lot of agents, if you're a brokerage that has at least 3 agents, you can do intermediary. So, um, and in our case, we have over 230 listings, we have over 200 agents. So the compensation becomes ever so crucial. And let me start our conversation with that is that the listing starts the process. A seller is reaching out to you, letting you know that they want to sell because they're needing to relocate or they're ready to downgrade, upgrade, whatever, having to change cities for work purposes, or they got it's a veteran and they got instructions to relocate out of state or out of the country, right? So do not, if you take nothing away from this training, take the fact that you need to negotiate from a position of strength, not weakness. And when you're asked what our company compensation is, it's 6, 7, or 8, not 4, 5, or 6, or 6, 5, 4. It's not. Because if you cut the compensation, whether that agent is in this office or not, or part of the other 14,000 realtors that they're in the city, you're not doing yourself a favor. If you're a listing agent today or have been a listing agent for the last year, go back and monitor anybody not offering full compensation. Those houses have sat at 2.5 for 4 to 6 months. So I'm a little bit disappointed with the philosophy that NAR has taken and has flat out said, well, the listing agent controls the gold, the buyer's agent, you know, um, they're on their own. I'm like, no, guys, nobody's alone here. It takes an army to raise a child or a kid, right? Well, it takes an army to close a real estate transaction. And other brokerages need to take the same philosophy is that, Mr. Seller, if you're not in a position to pay full commissions to whoever's bringing a qualified buyer, I'd be doing you a horrible injustice by taking on a listing and not compensate them because they have choices, they have options. Why would somebody deliver their cash buyer, their pre-approved buyer, from USAA, Wells Fargo, or Fidelity Mortgage or whatever, or Pilgrim Mortgage or whatever. Why would they bring you their buyer and you're not going to compensate the buyer's agent? Because no doubt about it, guys, what we bring to the table as buyer's agents are qualified buyers. And everybody in this office has enough experience to know that you don't get in your car and show property unless they're pre-qualified or pre-approved. In 100-degree weather, really? You already need to know the loan program, what the rate's going to be approximately, how much funds they're going to need. And those are the questions, due diligence that you do. Mr. Loan Officer or Miss Loan Officer, what program, what's the plan, what are their options? FHA, VA, USDA, convention, all of them, great. So why would you deliver them to a for sale by owner or to a seller that's not going to pay you full compensation? Why would you do that to yourself in 100-degree weather? Right? So at the end of the day, when you control the listing, you control the compensation. And if you're a broker with 200 agents, your fiduciary duty as an agent in this office is to uphold your fiduciary duties, which are obedience, liability, disclosure, the second part. Care, accountability, and responsibility. Take care of your seller. Take care of your buyer. Accountability. Mr. Seller, I'm not taking on this listing for 5% commission, much less 3, much less $1. Because guess what? I'm going to waste my time. Because nobody from my office is going to want to do open houses. And nobody from the city of San Antonio is going to deliver their qualified buyer to you. Why? In 100-degree weather? They're not going to do it. And then they have to fight for you on compensation, on repairs, on who's going to pay title survey, home service plan. They're not going to want to do that. They're not going to want all that drama. It all can be avoided. So our agents in our office, based on my philosophy, my policies, you will do yourself justice, as well as our office, our brokerage, as well as every member that you're going to mobilize. Because the moment that you take on a listing, you're mobilizing 200 other agents. Nobody's going to do anything. We're a team here. So once again, take on a listing for full commissions. I'm hoping that other agents will follow pursuit. Unfortunately, we're already starting to see policy from different major players. Like Open Door is zero compensation, guys. Zero compensation is their company policy across the country. If you don't believe me, log on to MLS as soon as we're done here and pull up all Open Door listings. 0% compensation with a credit to the buyer of 2.65. They're not paying for title. They usually don't pay for survey. They're only offering 2.65 percentage as closing costs to the buyer. Well, what does that mean to you? Okay, well, and that's one of the things that we're going to talk about today, is that you're an independent contractor under our umbrella, you're a sponsored agent, and you need to conduct business on a client level. You're going to have to determine if you even want to take that person on as a client. Like an attorney, you think an attorney takes on everybody? They don't. They take it based on ability to pay and also the result that they can guarantee, right? And then if they have to do more extensive work, they charge you more money. Hey, I'm going to take on your case. If I do all of this, I'll charge you this. But if I have to do more work and depositions and show up to the courthouse, do more writing and more affidavits and more of this and more of that, there's going to be there's another tier. Menu of services. Sound familiar? Because for 6%, we're going to provide you good level of service. For 7%, we're going to provide a different higher level of service. Excellent. But for 8%, we're going to provide you an exemplary level of service. Okay? So have a menu of services. We are a transaction company for the benefit of our senior agents, that they've earned the right to call in 100% compensation. Everybody starts at those major franchises. Everybody starts at 70-30, 60-40 minus their fee. You end up working for 50%. Well, the agents that work here at PRG that have the experience, unless you're part of somebody's team or you're being mentored, you does that change, right? But at the end of the day, we're not a discount brokerage. Okay. So call in your worth, and it starts with the listing. So do yourself justice and keep 200 people as part of your team by paying full compensation. Okay. Second of all, the other thing that you guys have to take into account is, because one of the things that's important is for you guys to do a buyer's orientation. Outline what you're going to do from beginning to end. This is the process. This is the procedure. If you are not doing a buyer's orientation before deciding to take on a client and aren't arranging for financing for them, you're missing the boat. Have a buyer's orientation. There's a lot of documentation that you guys can review, cover as many disclosures from, there's I want to say it's 1905, which covers what an appraisal is, to what is title, to what is the home inspection. I mean, it covers like 4 pages of terms of different activities or tasks that you guys are going to be involved in. Okay. So sell value by sharing your knowledge, your experience, scenarios. Make mine your own, and that's perfectly fine. If you need help, I'll be more than happy to step in. If you need to get your client pre-qualified, we have several people in our office, to include Melissa Turner, Keith, Nancy, Augie, myself. We're here for you guys if you need the support. I know that many of you guys use other people, and that's okay. But at the end of the day, that's one of the things that you do. You arrange for financing. Your goal is to try to make it a pleasant buying experience, and make it happen for them because of the knowledge and the tools and the resources and your team. So if you conduct your business on a client level, that means you meeting them at a professional setting, sitting down with them, and then, of course, interviewing them. I have gotten phone calls from on many of you agents, one of them here specifically all the time. I'll take the calls, guys, and they're telling me, well, your agent asked a lot of questions and she's being aggressive on the listing side and the buying side, and I already know who those 5 or 10 people are because they're meticulous. I want to know if your buyer qualifies. I have to uphold my fiduciary duties to my seller. Are they qualified? Do they have income, assets, credit? Do they have to sell a home before buying this one? Is there anything that you need to disclose to me that could prevent the sale? Conversely, on the buying side, Mr. Buyer, are you gainfully employed? Are you working full-time, permanent? Are you an hourly employee, salary employee? Are you a contractor? Do you get paid by the job, by the trip, by the piece, right? There's a lot of questions because a lot of people think that, oh, well, that their 1099 is their W-2. Well, no. Your W-2 is not a pay stub. A W-2 is not a 1099. Okay. So once again, it's complicated. You have the right to ask a buyer all the questions that you feel that you need to, and even help in the collection of financials if you need to determine if they're a good candidate for financing, worthy of you investing your time in them. Because it's an investment of your time, guys. Because the money doesn't matter, but you won't ever get back your time. So you asking all the questions that you need to determine if you're even going to take them on as a client. And that's what attorneys do. If you don't have any money to pay me, I'm so sorry. You've just been charged with capital murder. But that's not my problem. If you can't pay me, I have other clients that are clients are willing to pay me because I'm going to be available after hours and weekends and national holidays for you. I'm going to block out my entire weekend, miss that graduation or the fun time at the pool, uh, and changing my plans for your family. And I don't have the right to ask you if you have money saved up, if you're going to get a gift. Where's the gift coming from? Is it under the mattress? Are you having to sell a car? There's nothing that's off limits because it's your business. And if there is a brokerage in this city advocating, oh, stay in your lane, yes, stay in their lane once you communicate them with with the builder and the loan officer and the insurance company or whatever. There, and one of the things that I do, guys, is especially when it's complicated or I have to give some news that there's a change of plans based on dynamics. Always call the realtor first and tell them, hey, I'm getting ready to call the client. They didn't disclose that they own some property in the middle of nowhere, and the fraud report picked it up. You know, I'm getting ready to call them. They're going to be upset that I found out, but they should have disclosed that to me to begin with. And let's just hope and pray that they don't turn down the loan because they didn't disclose all their debt, right? Because the bank needs to make a good decision. A bank doesn't want to take on risks that they don't need. They don't want to buy back a loan. They don't want housing and urban development to go, you do crappy loans, you need to buy all these loans. Because then if they have to buy back loans, guys, they're not going to be in business very long. Okay. So once again, you guys help the lender and push the deal along. You place it with the lender. It's your client. We work together as a team, but they always need to keep you in the loop. There has to be an open line of communication. And if they're telling you, why are they asking me for that? You should have the experience to know, well, you're self-employed. Of course they need your tax returns, plus your 1099s, plus 12 months or 24 months worth of bank statements. Of course. Can you just get them what they need? Can you just, I mean, if a bank is asking you, whether it be Randolph Brooks or Fidelity Mortgage or whatever mortgage company you use, when a bank is asking you for something, you requesting an exception is not an option. They're asking you because they're in the process of validating the quality of the loan and qualifying it. So a realtor's response should be, I place you with this lender and I trust them. I've worked with them in the past. All I can tell you is just communicate with them and provide anything that's being requested. They know what they're doing because, this isn't their first loan. And when you're self-employed, it gets complicated. Sometimes we'll use tax returns. Sometimes we'll use corporate returns. Sometimes we'll use a 1099, a profit and loss, 12 months worth of bank statements, 24 months worth of bank statements. And sometimes we just have to take out all of that and do a DSR loan, where we use the rental income to qualify for the purchase of the home. So you see, and it's not just, our in-house lender, it's any lender that you work with. If you don't fit in one bucket, there's 20 other buckets we can fit you in. But we want to come back to you and say, hey, we have solutions for you. Is this an option for you? I've gotten to the point that I don't want to argue with the buyer. Mr. Buyer, I get it. You have an 800 credit score, but I need to know your income, your assets, your credit. We have timelines to adhere to. You have an option period. We have, 21 days for third-party financing, and we need to meet your closing date within 30 days. I need you to provide what I need. You calling your realtor doesn't mean anything. Okay. All you're going to do is stress her out, and she's going to refer you back to us. I need what I need. So if I can't read it, it's not legible, if it's cut off, or if it looks like it was altered, the reason I'm asking you for the original for a better copy is because underwriting is requesting for it, or compliance, or you were picked up for quality control. Just provide it. That way we can move along and meet our timelines, right? Because then all of a sudden your earnest money is at risk. So once again, you need to back up your lender for the purpose of getting your client closed. How many conversations did you probably have from beginning to end with the lender and with the buyer? Right? A lot of texting, a lot of conversations. But the best thing that you can do is say, hey, if you don't want to provide, and on your buyer's orientation, guys, if you don't want to provide anything, that's perfectly fine. No problem. So you're paying cash. Because I've gotten to the point that if you're not going to provide what I need you to provide, because I'm trying to get a loan for you, it's FHA, VA, USDA. Okay, I have to answer to the Department of Veteran Affairs on your behalf. Either you give me what I need, or the alternative is for you to pay cash. Please let me know. I'm not going to argue with you, because unless you have 300 or $500,000 or $1.3 million in the bank, whatever your sales price is, if cash is an option, you should have told me that at the beginning. You should have told your realtor upon entry at buyer's orientation that you had cash. You wouldn't have had to provide any one document. All you do is wire your money in. You have to provide your realtor with a bank statement or a good funds letter from their bank. Show up to your closing with your driver's license. You could have circumvented it. But if that's not an option to you, you need to communicate. I mean, you need to provide what's being requested. Okay. So once again, knowing the finance piece becomes crucial. And that's just the financing, guys. Let's talk about repairs. Okay, Mr. Seller, there's repairs. How do you negotiate those? Mr. Buyer, there's repairs. How do you negotiate those? Some people want cash and they want to do it themselves. They want a price reduction. They want closing cost assistance instead of, doing all of those maintenance issues. You know, there's some things that are going to be lender required. You think that the buyer and seller aren't going to have a fist fight after going tick for tack if it's a for sale by owner? They might be your best friend you're buying the house from. But if once you get into a real estate transaction, I can guarantee you that friendship is lost. It's gone, even amongst relatives. That's the reason realtors are needed. Oh, and let me cover that. The only people on the planet who do not need a realtor, it's a real estate attorney. Because if you're family practice and you do malpractice and you do some other kind of law, corporate law, even they need a realtor, guys. Okay. I have a listing right now, and she is a family law attorney. She called me to list her home on behalf of her mother. Okay. So attorneys, unless they're real estate attorney and neurosurgeon, I've helped a neurosurgeon sell and purchase a home. Even a neurosurgeon needs a realtor, guys. This is a niche. It's a specialty. Know your worth, know your value. There's a lot of forms, a lot of negotiating, a lot of back and forth. And the consumer thinks, many of these HGTV realtors think that, 30 minutes of your time, you go home, it's going to take you 5 minutes to prepare the paperwork and the package, another 5 minutes to present it, and you're going to become a millionaire through summer. That's not the reality. People can't even understand or comprehend how many tasks are involved for you to get it past the next stage, much less past the closing table. So a lot of tasks, a lot of activities, and sell value, the proposition, be from beginning to end. If you do what I need you to do, I have a team of people. I have lenders, I have title companies, I have home inspectors, the electrician, the plumber, right? The HVAC guy, the handyman guy, the termite guy, the solar panel guy, if you use one of those, somebody to check out the pool equipment, somebody to check out the water softener. I've worked with home service plans. There's so many vendors involved. Okay, so the realtor brings it all together and makes it happen. By a buyer deciding to purchase, and let's talk about again motivation. The seller's trying to sell, and they're trying to sell one home. And one of the things that I love about this business is that not only do we have the inventory in this office, we have the inventory in the entire city of San Antonio. And in our case, because we're part of multiple boards, just so that you guys know, we're part of New Braunfels, Kerrville, Fredericksburg, Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, Houston, Corpus, Rockport, Del Rio, Eagle Pass, Laredo, McAllen. We're getting ready to become members of South Padre Island. Somebody's getting ready to list $1 million condo in South Padre Island. El Paso. We have people in this office, guys, that get on planes every 2 weeks because they have clients in El Paso or in Dallas, Fort Worth, or they get in their car. Because what? The prices are 4 and 6,000 and 800,000. You're going to make 3% of that. Doesn't it make sense to keep 100% minus your transaction fee, minus your expenses, rather than just get a 30% referral fee? Okay, we open up that opportunity for you guys. Conversely, the seller is selling one property. The buyers have the inventory of the city through their realtor. And let's talk about camaraderie again. The listing should be taken on for 6, 7, or 8. And why 8? Why 8%? Housing and Urban Development, who establishes guidelines, general guidelines that most people follow, like in manufactured housing. Well, who sets the guidelines? Well, Housing and Urban Development through the FHA program. They dictate policy to the other agencies. Same thing with the compensation on a trade transaction. Because guys, when the market deteriorated horribly in 2007, 6, 7, and 8, and 9, and 10, who took the fall was the lending industry. And if you guys think that you guys are going through changes, they changed the settlement statement like 3 or 4 times. Compliance was horrible. Adjustments were horrible. I mean, we got through them. We're going to get through this as well. Okay. It's just a matter of going back to basics, understanding the value that you provide to a transaction. And of course, my philosophy is to negotiate from a position of strength rather than weakness. So I will tell you this, that 8% commission sounds unreasonable, but we have been involved in farm and ranch and commercial deals with the total compensation was 12%. Seller really wanted to sell, buyer really wanted to buy. You know, it all came together and everybody paid their own agent. You know, there's no restrictions when you're off grid. FHA, VA, USDA, and conventional. A paper caliber loans, maximum compensation is 8%, according to Housing and Urban Development. Okay. Furthermore, beyond that, lots, farm, ranch, commercial, there's no restrictions. Owner finance, no restrictions. You can collect whatever you want. It's off grid. So what ends up happening is this, guys, is that a seller needs to understand that a buyer has other options. They're selling that one home and the buyer has the inventory of the city of San Antonio. So the moment that a listing agent isn't doing their job, upholding their fiduciary duties, guess what happens? They're doing the seller a horrible injustice by not, because then the house is going to sit and then they're going to end up getting fired anyways. Right. And then they're going to go with another agent. The first thing, hey, I saw your agent was paying 2.5. And you know that was a weak agent, because then all of a sudden, if he couldn't negotiate for their own compensation, well, of course they weren't going to be able to negotiate for you. If you guys do a discount, do it because they're repeat customers or their family. And even then, think about it. Okay. Because what it is that you don't know if you're going to show them 1 or 5 houses, or you're going to be showing them houses for 2 years. So like I said, up to 8% compensation, right? So that's one of the things that I cover in these agreements is, and I want to start first and foremost with, I already covered the listing. Because we can't go into the buyer's compensation without covering the listing. So full compensation and then some. Because guess what happens? When you call me after hours and on Saturday and Sunday and a national holiday, which I will always take your call, because I'm thinking 2 things are going on. You have a licensing problem or a compliance issue, or it's going to cost you money. And in this marketplace, I'm going to give you multiple examples, is the fact that the market's challenging. Inflation, the economy is bad, right? So a number of things are happening. Is this economy is the best thing that could have happened to us with this settlement, because people are on the bench, the interest rates are high, and folks are concerned. Gas prices, food prices. There's folks that can't even pay their utility bills. There's folks that have shortages in their escrow accounts. There's people that aren't working 40 hours. I mean, overtime and bonuses gone by the wayside. Every household throughout the country has been affected approximately $11,000. But raises didn't go up 4 and 5 and 6,000, much less 11. So there's a shortfall in people's households. So had this settlement taken effect 2 years ago or 3 years ago, when rates were in the 2s and the 3s and the 4s, and there was a shortage of supplies and a high demand, sellers would have been sitting in a position of strength, and we would have been like, what am I going to do? Because the seller's not offering compensation. Now the policy nationwide has moved to the direction that the seller could say, well, why I'll pay you, my listing agent, but I'm not going to pay the buyer's agent. Why? Or for sell by owner, they'd stick a sign out there, and it happened to many people in this office. I mean, we allow intermediary guys, or you can represent the seller as a client. And if you didn't provide advice and opinion, you can do both sides of the transaction, whether it be an investor or prospect, and do both sides. But if you didn't give any advice and opinion, your client's the seller. You can still collect two compensations, right? So by the time that you went live with the listing, it was already sold. You did both sides. We allow that at PRG. They don't allow that at major franchises because of the level of risk. That's the reason I have a class on Friday, guys. I talk to so many of you because many of you do both sides. Because it's a moneymaker. You just earn 6% commission on one deal. Why not? We allow it. As long as you call me, we talk about it. I ask you questions. I keep you in your lane. Are they a prospect? Are they just a consumer? Okay, don't talk too much. Listen to them. Let them call the shots. Hey, it's my mother's house across the street. Okay, great. Are you pre-qualified? Are you paying cash? Right? Or I'm an investor. I need you to just write up the offer. I don't need your advice and opinion. Oh, and by the way, can you give me a discount on the commission? They're not your client. They're just a prospect or a consumer. Might as well be somebody off the streets. But that's not a decision that they make. It's the decision that you make. You took on the listing for 6 or 7 or 8. That's not, you can lower the price if you want. But I'm so sorry. That conversation about compensations between myself and the seller. You're not privileged to that. Okay. So at the end of the day, what happens is this, guys, this is the perfect marketplace for this NAR settlement to be going down because the economy is booming. People are suffering out there. They're on the bench. And it's not 2022 or after COVID through 22 when the rates really plummeted. It's the best thing that could have happened to us. So we're going to survive, or at least we're going to survive here at PRG Platform. Okay. But at the end of the day, know this is that the builder community, the builders that are intelligent, will pay you 4, 5, and 6% commission. They will pay for you to bring your highly qualified borrowers to their communities. They love you. They're embracing you. They even have coffee for you and snacks and Starbucks coffee and gift cards and all that other stuff. They're paying you. They're rewarding you for you to give them the privilege to sell their product to your client who, if they already got in your car, is already highly qualified. And they're offering, well, the payment's not comfortable. It's okay. We're not giving you a 6 or 7 or 8. We're guaranteed. We're buying 10,000 rates between 3.9 and 4.25 or 4.9 to 5.25. They're guaranteeing the rate because they're buying blocks of rates. So whether you have a 620, my understanding is if you have a 620 or a 720, you get the same rate that they're guaranteeing to everybody because they're committing 1,000 or 10,000 loans to that banking line. So therefore, that's the reason a builder is able to do that. So you're getting an awesome guaranteed rate. You're getting all of these concessions, buy downs, prepaids, closing costs, 4, 5, and 6, and 7% commissions to the buyer's agent. And then furthermore, they're throwing in the washer, dryer, refrigerator, and the sprinkler system. How can a regular seller in the existing marketplace, compete with that? They can't. They can't. So when you take on a listing, you always have to provide the law of substitution. Why would a buyer's agent, Mr. Seller, I know you referred to me or you called me off my sign. I feel privileged and honored that you think that I'm going to sell your $400,000 home, but if you're only going to pay me, that means I have to do 2 jobs. I not only have to market your property as the selling agent, but then all of a sudden, I have to attract buyers too. And there's a chance that I'm going to have to represent the buyer. And I'm not able to do both jobs for 3%. You're not asked to show up to work and work 40 hours a week and do 2, 3 people's jobs for one salary, right? I couldn't do it. San Antonio is the seventh largest city in the nation. We are the seventh largest economy in the world. If people didn't know where Texas was, before I would tell people, yeah, I'm from Texas, and the conversation was 2 seconds. And they were like, oh, okay. And now it's like, oh wow, what's going on in Texas? And what's going on? What's happening? They get excited. There's wonderful things going on in Texas, thanks to me, Mr. Elon Musk and everything else that came afterwards. And it's only going to get better. Just in San Antonio, guys, we have 5 Microsoft data centers. And if that's not exciting enough, wow, they're bringing in the jobs, they're having to accommodate housing. If there's one sector in the city of San Antonio that's booming, is anything off 1604, 151 headed towards Castroville and Potranco Road and all of that area. We had an agent that was involved, I would want to say, in 90 acres. The sale went down for $2.7 million. An agent in our office was the listing agent of that land close to Castroville. And furthermore, the builder took her on as a consultant, so she's even helping with the land development and everything and the infrastructure as well. Okay, so once again, at the end of the day, just know this is that buyers have options. Seller can choose not to pay the compensation, but you also can choose not to take them on as a client. Furthermore, you need to mobilize 200 people in this office and 14,000 realtors in the city of San Antonio. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Under special provisions, and I'm going to cover that here shortly, is I'm going to finish out with the exclusive right to sell. So take on your listing for 6, 7, and 8% compensation, and that is inclusive of bonuses. Because remember, guys, when you call me on after hours, desperate, your listing isn't moving, I will always advise 3 things. Lower the price. Number 1. Number 2, offer concessions. If you are offering 5, offer 8. And now, if your listing says 3% compensation, which you at least started right, you did your seller justice and the real estate community justice, offer bonus. Because they need to know that the builder, their main competition is the builder. It's not even their neighbor in the same community. Offer a bonus. Price reduction, concessions, and bonus. Think outside the box. Okay, that is what's going on in this marketplace. So that's the listing. So now I'm going to cover the short-term buyer's representation agreement. The difference between the short-term and the long-term, guys, is that the short-term is like when you meet somebody and you don't know them, they weren't referred to you. You met them at the grocery store, you start talking about real estate or whatever, or you met them at an open house. And they said, oh, yeah, we're already pre-qualified and everything. And I don't like my realtor and she never calls me back and she's only showed me one property and da-da-da. Did you sign anything? No, I haven't, or whatever. Okay, how about I meet you in the parking lot? How about next door in the coffee shop? And we'll have an interview. We'll have a sit down to determine if we're a good fit to work with one another. I would get them to sign the short form. Hey, thank you for coming to our open house. If you did not like this property, there's 3 or 5 other properties that I can expose you to. I do need for you to sign my information about brokerage services, which is required by the Texas Real Estate Commission, as well as on this property, I represent the seller because it's a listing from my office. Okay. But I'm getting ready to expose you to the rest of the inventory in the surrounding area. So today I'm going to show you 3 to 5 homes. Let me go ahead and make appointments for them real quick. Or I can meet you in the next 15, 20 minutes and I'll take care of that. But then in the next 2, 3 days, I'm going to expose you also to the new home market. And then we can determine if we're going to work together. Okay. But I'm going to get you to sign this. It's only for 2, 3 days, or it's only for a week, or for 10 days, your choice. And we're going to go ahead and include Bear County and Kendall, because they're off of I-10, wanting to, I would even throw in Kerr if they're wanting to be off I-10. I would do Bear County, Kendall, and Kerr, or you might end up in Castroville and Medina, throw in your counties in or surrounding counties. But either way, you could put up to 4%, up to 5% on number 7. And remember this is that you're going to make the business decision, guys, of if the builder is offering a 7% compensation on the construction side, you need to put up to 7%. You know that it's out there. I just got something deposited, by DR Horn that there's 2 or 3 communities where they're offering 7% compensation. So on new construction or the construction section, you do need to put up to 7%. In the existing market, you could put 3 or 4. Go ahead and put 4, because then if you're going to do 3 plus your transaction fee, it should be inclusive of that. You can weigh the difference. We do have agents, guys. Like I said, this compensation has always been negotiable. We have agents for years and years that have been charging 4% plus our transaction fee. We have an agent that does farm and ranch that she, from the beginning, said, Rudy, I'm going to have to charge this. There's no way I can do this job for 3%. Are you kidding me? It takes me 45 minutes just to exit my ranch, to leave my ranch. I can't do it for 3%. So she charges 4% plus our transaction fee, and so can you. Okay? So always go up higher. That way you don't have to get them to sign an amendment reflecting that you're charging them more compensation because you didn't catch something, or that the builder is offering bonuses. If your short firm or long firm already says up to 7%, you don't have to go back and double back and get an amendment for your buyer's representation agreement. So in this case, up to, okay? And you want a space bar and type that in, okay? So that's the short form, like when it's an open house. And then what I would do is take the short form and go, hey, I like you. I want to work with you. We're starting our journey. I think we're a good fit. I would transition it to the long form. Because then in that case, what you could do is in special provisions on the long form, you can actually put a retainer fee of $1,500 or transaction fee of $500 under line item 17, which is special provisions. Special provisions is 17. Okay, and you can just type it in there. Borrower responsible for transaction fee of $500 or $1,000. Okay. And then of course, number 7 up to 3 or 4%. And then my favorite 7E is the construction, additional compensation, construction. I have up to 5% of the sales price for example purposes only, but I would do up to 7 just because builders are offering 7 or a couple of them are. Okay.
So
Mm-hmm.
7, 8. Why does it only have to be?
I just threw in 3. I threw in 3 because remember, this is only the buyer's representation agreement. When you take on the listing, the exclusive right to list, the seller's compensation is in there as well as if they're offering compensation to the buyer. But if it's not being offered, so once again, why don't we talk about that? How is the compensation gathered? Well, hey, I'm going to get you to sign my short form. It says up to 4%. Just know that I'm going to try to get my compensation. I'm a master negotiator, and I know the city of San Antonio. I was born and raised here. And I'm going to first collect the money from the seller, and then I'll try to collect it from the builder. And then I'll try to collect it in closing costs or closing cost concessions, and then you'll be responsible for the difference. And hopefully that will be a very minimal. And it's also negotiable. Okay. So once again, negotiate from a position of strength. I wouldn't spend a whole lot of time on the compensation. Let's get in my car and let's go show you something. Because I know somewhere, somehow, I'm taking you somewhere where they're going to pay me. Right? But at the same time, it'll be a journey and expose them to the inventory. Because like I said, guys, when you're deciding to work with people and they're telling you, no, I don't have any money, everything is 0 across the board. At that moment, I'm like, are you sure that you even want to be purchasing a home? Or be asking other questions. Is there somebody you can add on? Can you bring in mom and dad, brother, sister, cousin, best friend, Sancho, Sancha? I don't care. Bring in whoever you need to. Okay. So I have been involved in transactions where the ex-husband already married, helped his ex-wife purchase a home for the benefit of the children. That is class. Okay, so you never know. Okay, so short form, long form. We talked about retainer fees. Guys, retainer fees. Let me double back there. If you're going to work with somebody from out of state or out of the country, like in your case that you work with Mexican nationals, if they're going to come here and take up your time Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or and you're having to put other clients aside and devote all of your time to them Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and they're from out of town, and you're going to pick them up at the airport and you're going to wine them, dine them, show them the inventory of San Antonio and the surrounding areas because you're the market expert. Remember that you're the real estate market expert in the existing foreclosure and the new home market. You are not a glorified tour guide. That costs $25 to get on that little boat over there at downtown San Antonio on the Riverwalk. Don't get him in your car and invest that kind of time without collecting your money. Hey, it's a retainer fee. If Mr. So-and-so from out of the country or from California, if you have every intention to purchase a home in San Antonio, it's a retainer fee. If you close, I'll be more than happy to rebate it back to you. Okay, at closing, when you close. But if you don't buy anything, I'm keeping this retainer fee as liquidated damages because I set aside my family, other families, all the rest of my appointments and my tasks and my duties, to be able to devote all of my time and effort to you. If you have every intention of buying this $500,000 home or $1 million home or invest in this property, in that case, you won't have a problem paying me my retainer fee. There's zero risk involved. I'll credit the retainer fee at closing. But if they don't do anything, guys, you get to keep that money. So you collect retainer fees on special provisions on the long form, section 17. Okay. Let us know. There's an invoice that's in our portal. You can use it for rentals as well. But also professional services, consulting, retainer fee for whatever. And we will send it out on your behalf through a Square. And then we're also talking about, let's go back to the short form now, that you could charge a percentage or you could charge $150 for 3 homes. I wouldn't do that, guys. I would not open up that can of worms with a buyer to say, well, what's up? You were going to charge me $150 for 3 homes. You only showed me 2 more and we went under contract. Why are you charging me 3% commission? It's going to be very hard for you to go back. So I wouldn't even mention. You're better off showing them 3 houses for free and not having that discussion. Hey, I need you to give me $150. Because then what you're letting them know that's what your time's worth. Hey, we will find you a house. This is what I do for a living. I specialize in real estate. This isn't a hobby for me. Trust me, I'm going to grab you by the hand and I'm going to take you through the entire journey. You have my personal commitment that we will find the perfect home for you and your family in the zip code or in the school district that you are desiring. Okay. My compensation is 3 to 4% of the sales price, which don't worry about that right now. Okay. Because once again, I'm a master negotiator. I'm going to collect my compensation first from the seller. And if the seller doesn't pay it, the builder. And if not the builder, I can ask for closing cost concessions to make up that spread. So that way that compensation doesn't come out of your. And if for whatever the reason there's a shortfall of $500 or $1,000, well, then yes, that will be your responsibility. But no, you will not pay the bulk of my compensation, especially right now in this marketplace. Because let's get it right, Mr. Biden. You and I, we're a team. We're the dream team right now. And you and I are doing the seller a favor. And if the seller doesn't realize that, there's other options on property because the seller is only selling 1 house. And working with me as a realtor, you have access to the entire inventory of the city of San Antonio, both in the existing market as well as the new home market. Are you ready to start your journey? Buckle up. Let's go. Right. There's a lot of recordings, but yes, but the purpose of these trainings are for me to give you different ideas of what I would do and what I have done Because I was collecting retainer fees, guys, in 2005, 6, and 7, because I got tired of working with Mexican nationals that would come in and would be wanting to look at houses in the Dominion and or Inverness or whatever. And then all of a sudden, they changed their mind and buy in Houston. And then I consider myself a glorified tour guide at that time, or all these investors from California. Because if you guys think that people from California have invaded our marketplace, they invaded our marketplace for sure in 2004, 6, and 7. 50% of my clients were from California. They loved it. I did. It was very lucrative. But man, there were some people that did take up my time. It reached the point that no, I'm needing a retainer fee. It's stuff that you pick up with experience, and that's what I'm trying to do with you guys is share that with you, because I've already been through it, guys. In September, I'll be uh, uh, licensed 24 years, 22 of them as a real estate broker. Okay, so once again, I talked to a lot of you guys. So
is it possible to collect the money pursuing around what you mentioned that free courses, being free out there and collect some money? I don't know, 250, whatever.
I would discourage that, because if you're gonna, because there is a service that you can pay and they'll show you a house for $50. So the moment that you put a, a, a charge of of an hourly rate, or because that is only one task. Okay, that is one task. It's kind of like attorneys also will give you a free consultation to determine if they're going to take you on as a client. They want you to know that they know what they're doing. Hey, I just got off OJ Simpson, you know. But as for example, right? I'm good. I know what I'm doing. Okay. You have a free consultation, but I'm needing to decide if I want to work with you. By you collecting $50 or $150 for 3 houses, you're going to set the precedence that that's what your time is worth. Because trust me, you will get friction. Well, you charged me at the beginning $150. Why are you getting paid $10,000 from the builder? See what I mean? So you need to be very careful what monies you collect and what costs you put on your time for a task. When you're selling 3 and 4% commission, or you're taking on a listing for 6 or 7 or 8%, when you're taking on a listing for 6 or 7 or 8%, I'm assuming that you're confident that there's a possibility that you're going to be doing 2 jobs. And if you don't do one and you don't do the other, just know that whoever's bringing you the buyer is doing you a favor, right? So at the same time, if you're going to collect at an open house $150, you would be doing yourself a horrible injustice, because at the end of your journey, there will be some friction between you and your client. I can assure you.
The main goal is just to get it along.
Yes, absolutely. Secure the business. Hello, how are you? Thank you for coming to our open house. And it didn't work out with that house. Hey, here's my short form for 2, 3 days. I charge 3 or 4% commission. But once again, it's just an agreement, while we determine if we want to work with one another. But just know that I'm going to try to collect that from other sources. Move on with your day. Okay. So then, that might be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and by Friday and Saturday and Sunday, they've already said, "Hey, I blocked off Saturday and Sunday. We're going to increase our price 100,000. We really want to be in this school, and I noticed that there's a couple of new home communities. Oh yeah, great. They're already on my list. Let's go. Let's roll. All right. I mean, you want to secure the professional relationship at a percentage rather than a dollar figure. Because there are people that are going to work for $150, but how many times can you do that? There's people that are going to work. Another suggestion is that you guys work by the hour, by the house, well, to work for a transaction fee of $1,500. How many of those can you do? In this business, for it to be lucrative for you, it has to be a percentage. Okay. My advice to you as your broker, because I mean, once again, there's a number of things that I do. Okay. But one of the main things that I try to do, and when I talk to you, is make you better entrepreneurs, better business owners. Don't give away this profession away over per me showing you 2, 3 homes. I mean, you might be able to gas up your tank that day, but you might not collect that $10,000 commission because people don't value things that are free. And I see it here every day, guys. You know that we have an online university that's available to you guys for free. It's got all sorts of wealth of knowledge and information. Same thing with, I mean, we have KV Core that's included as part of your plan. I get to pay $2,700 a month for that. And there's less than 12 of you using it. So when you give people stuff for free, you know, they might not see the value in it. Okay. But I'm a giver and I love you guys. So I always want to put myself in. I gave you everything, you know, because I'm all about karma. You give love and respect to the universe and you get it back. So, and that's me as a broker. I give you guys an abundance of resources, you know, hoping and praying that you will use them. But it's up to you if you do, because I'm not pushy either, right? I let you do your own thing, but they're available to you. But same thing with the consumer. They're not going to value things that are, you know, that are given away or where you put a low cost. Because remember, guys, no doubt about it, we are a transaction company. We're not a discount firm. And we're probably where there's a lot of other transaction companies out there. Many of them are making a lot of noise. One of them in the city has over 1,500 agents, but they don't have an office.
If I charge some like showing the fees, then they probably me like to another agent. Okay, then they said, okay, oh, you charge me some showing the fees, then okay, I'm not gonna do business with you, something like that.
Yeah, I'd be very careful charging. If you collect $150 from a buyer to show them 3 or 5 homes, the probability, I think, that it will transition into the long form or that it's going to transition into a contract diminishes by the minute. Because once again, when you're buying a house, I mean, we all want that HGTV realtor, right? Beautiful hair. She looks, you know, high heels, beautiful, good looking guy with a suit. I mean, I don't know how realistic it is in 100-degree weather, but I mean, we all want that experience. Neiman Marcus, you walk in and they even give you Starbucks and stuff. And that's the experience they want, but they really want to pay the Dollar Tree when they have to pay. But in this case, they don't. I would rather you collect it from the seller, from the builder, and leave the difference and take the risk and have them pay the difference of anything you were unable to collect, than collect $150 up front. Because then there's already a service for them. That's not in the bucket that you want to put yourself in. Right? So we can chat about that later, depending on what your strategy is going to be. But certainly, I'm trying to get you guys to negotiate from a position of strength, as well as not give away the farm, you know, or the jewels here. But yeah, I'd be very careful to charge. And there was another gentleman yesterday that was talking about, well, I want to charge this, and so just for now, I realize that I'm going to make the company policy, or at least my policy, to advise you: don't collect that small figure, collect percentages. You know, because then you might start off at 200,000, but end up at 6. I know one time a few years ago, I started at 250, and she ended up buying an $800,000 home. You know, you never know where you're going to end up. I'd rather 3% of 800,000 than me collect a retainer fee of 1,500, right? So, you know, every situation is different, and we're going to have to adjust with what's going on in the marketplace. So, so let's say you decide not to put up to 4%, up to 7% on your buyer's rep agreement, and then you have to amend it. There's an amendment. So just so that you know, guys, the company policy will be right now. The company policy is that you have to request your CDA 10 days before closing, and we're getting ready to send out an email telling you that as we move into that August 17th date, and it needs to probably start next week, you will be required to turn in your package, your executed contract, your executed buyer's representation agreement, within 10 days of you guys going under contract. Because in conversations with underwriters, account executives, as well as title companies, I just had a detailed conversation with Maribel Velasquez. She's the supervisor at DHI Title, because we have a lot of deals that close there, guys. We did 1,100 transactions a year ago, almost 12, and like 300 of them were in the new home market. More than 50% were at D.R. Horton. Okay, so once again, she's telling me that the title company, like every other title company, I've had conversations with different escrow officers, is that who's driving the CD is the lender. The title company, they do what the lender says. So you guys just can't deliver, or Clint can't deliver a CDA 2 days before closing and you not have your buyer's rep agreement and everything in place. Because if, for example, let's say that the seller is only paying 3% and you're collecting $500 from the seller, I'm sorry, from the buyer, the lender needs to know about it. Or let's say they're paying 1%. Let's say it's a $400,000 home, that's $4,000. Seller's paying 2, 1 is being paid by the buyer. The buyer's not paying cash, they're getting a loan. So your loan officer, the processor, the underwriter, the closer and funder who's driving the CD2 title needs to know about it. So you guys won't be allowed to request changes to your CD within 10 days of closing. We're going to have to do that at the beginning, because we need to make sure that the day that you went under contract, you were in compliance with this national lawsuit. That the real estate commission is not going to come here and go, hey, we got a complaint. Why would happen? Well, the contract said the seller was paying 2%, and then all of a sudden numbers were changed and you collected another $4,500. Can you provide that buyer's rep agreement, please? Because the buyer had a problem with it. We better have that buyer's rep agreement that says that they were going to make up the difference. Because you cannot charge for money that the buyer didn't agree to pay. You don't show up anywhere at any grocery store or at a car dealership or whatever you're buying, and here you thought you were paying $10 and you get to the counter and they want to charge you 20. Okay, we are fiduciaries licensed by the state of Texas, that we've already gone through federal background checks. You cannot be involved in acts of moral turpitude. You're not even allowed to handle monies. They took the option money responsibility away from the agents on delivery. Now it's the responsibility of the title company. You're not allowed to collect money on, you can collect it on behalf of the brokerage, but it cannot make it into your account. So those people that are doing property management without my notice, if it's not your property, you're commingling money. You can't manage money without, because our policy is not to do property management, right? We just brought on a property manager, okay, and that's going to change her. But at the same time, we talk about retainer fees. That fee of 150 or 100 or 150 per house that you're going to charge, that has to go into our account, and then we have to disperse it to you. It cannot make it into your account, your personal account, because that is commingling of money. Same thing with application fees or whatever. Retainer fees, application fees, any kind of money needs to be ran through the brokerage. Conversely, we have to be responsible for monies, right? We in care of. You cannot be a fiduciary in different capacities: nurses, doctors, lawyers, financial services, loan officers, insurance agents, child care providers, teachers, policemen, firemen, folks that take care of seniors. The people can't leave their children with you, and they can't leave their 84-year-old father with you. You cannot function in a fiduciary capacity. And it doesn't involve money. So conversely, I'm going to go back to the income, into the money. We have to be very strategic, guys. The last thing we need, and that's the reason I didn't want to start August 17th with this. I think I started way ahead of everybody else because I'm concerned. I want to make sure that you guys are in compliance, that you guys have all these YouTube videos available to you and the coursework and stuff. But at the end of the day, what ends up happening is that I'm concerned that you guys are going to be out in the field not knowing what you need to do when you guys could have, come to class every day, us have discussions at lunchtime, and those kinds of things, and have that open room discussion. So let's have that discussion now. You will not be able to alter the buyer's rep agreement, the table, for your benefit. The lender who drives the CD needs to know about any monies. Because for example, guys, let's go to the lending side. If it's a $200,000 deal, you negotiated the deal. The loan estimate says that the buyer needs $8,000 to the table. And then all of a sudden, you're charging them $3,000 that the seller was unable and unwilling to pay. You just can't tell the title company or client, oh, well, send out my CDA and I can just spring it on the buyer at closing. Well, if their automated loan approval states that, oh, they need 1 month of reserves, or they can come to the table with X amount, but the difference needs to be used as reserves, and then you're going to eat $4,000 of it, you no longer have a loan approval because the buyer has insufficient funds to close. Or the buyer needed to pull it out of 401k, and because the lender didn't know that that you went with Open Door, and Open Door doesn't pay compensation, now they have to pay you $6,000. The lender needs to know, Mr. Lender, here is the contract, here's my compensation agreement. Make sure you throw in my compensation into your numbers, because I'm going to expect to get paid. So if you know that our buyer that I delivered to you, because we're a team, needed to cover a little bit of closing costs, their down payment, and now has to cover my compensation. They have $50,000 in their 401k. You can only take out money one time, guys. And that is based on when somebody takes out money from 401k or from one of these funds, you have to deliver a contract and you have to deliver a loan estimate to the 401k company. They just can't say, oh, I need 10,000. They want to see the contract, because even the 401k provider needs to be in compliance with the IRS. They have to document there was a contract. They have to document the loan estimate. There's a process, there's a procedure to be in compliance with the IRS, because then there's taxes involved. You get taxed usually 10% of whatever you pull the moment you pull it, and then you get another 10%. Yeah, in April. So you pay a 10 upon distribution and 10% when you file your taxes. That's 20%. However, the loan officer didn't put that they were going to be responsible for your compensation and closing costs and all that other stuff. So that's one of the things that I'm going to have to do, is that, hey, I'm needing to see the contract in its totality. I'm needing your buyer's rep agreement and any amendments, if you increased it for whatever the reason, as well as I'm needing the contract, because it tells me the different buckets: who's paid title, survey, home service plan, as well as 12B, which is the closing costs or the concessions, right? We had a closing just 2 weeks ago where it was approximately 200,000. The agent got $10,000 in concessions, lowered the price, got title survey, 10,000 in concessions, but $1,500 of that 10,000 was his compensation. I knew that going in. Hey, I did a magnificent job negotiating the deal of the century for him, but just so that you know, I charge a $1,500 transaction fee plus the 3% that the seller was paying. So sure enough, it was part of the loan estimate. Okay. So there's people that already were doing business like this, guys. I mean, I don't know if it's advocated somewhere else, but I always said the compensation or the commissions are already included in your sales price. The compensation has always been negotiable. Where we got this 3%, well, I'm glad that we have agents that charge 4, 5, and 6%, especially when they're doing farm and ranch and commercial or something that's just more complicated. So let's go back to the compensation again for new construction. Up to 7 or 8%. Up to 8%, because that's the maximum allowable on a TREC loan, FHA, VA, USDA, and conventional. You want to put up to 8% if you want to. Because then one of the things that you're going to tell the consumer, the buyer, or your client, in reality, the buyer, the consumer is going to turn into your client because they're going to sign that buyer's rep agreement. Is what you're going to tell them is this, is that Mr. Buyer, I don't know if we're going to go today and go and secure a brand new home, or we're going to go, it's going to end up in a 2-year journey where we went and looked for the land, and then we had to find the well and the septic, and then it's aerobic, and then the utilities, and then they charge you $2,500 and $3,500 for a utility pole because you decided to buy 50 acres, right? And now we're going to go interview custom home builders to determine if you're a good fit with them. And then you're complaining that I'm charging you 8% commission, the maximum allowable by HUD. You don't know if your journey is going to be 1 day or 200, or 2 years worth of work, especially when it's new construction. Because I have a personal friend, but his daughter is friends with my daughter, and we have become friends for years. It took them 2 years to finish the home. I finally saw it like 2 months ago. Gorgeous, it's beautiful. It was outside the city, headed towards Bandera on some mountain or whatever. Gorgeous, beautiful home. But 2 years. Because we all enter into agreements and contracts thinking that everything's going to be jolly and fantastic, and everybody is honest. Well, it was a nightmare with the contractors. They would never show up. They had to fire like 3 different electricians, 3 different plumbers, even fired 2 general contractors because they weren't showing up. But it cost him time, money, and effort. It took him 2 years to finish his home rather than a year. It should have actually been finished in 9 months, but it took him 2 years. So once again, go ahead.
So under intermediary, when we have 2 agents, and you're
Mhm.
together, let's say it's like customer is willing to pay a commission, like a 6%.
Mhm.
So now they called you, a buyer wants to see, but they don't want the representation.
Mhm.
So if they don't want the representation and you couldn't represent them,
Huh?
so would we have to change where we were doing the commissions to the buyer's agent because he doesn't want to have representation, or how does?
Okay, so you're saying that you're the listing agent, okay, and okay, yeah, and then a prospect is walking through the door saying, "I don't want representation." Yes, and I cover that on Fridays usually, but I'm going to cover it now. If you are the listing agent, you're taking on the book of business at 6%, 6, 7, or 8, right? 6%. And if you have an open house and there's somebody that walks through the door, you're the listing agent. And somebody walks in and says, "Hey, I live across the street. I don't want the house. I don't care what, nothing. I want the house, no ifs, ands, or buts. What's your asking price? Well, this is the MLS. These are the details. Okay. Well, I'm going to pay cash. Okay. All right. Hey, I bank at Randolph Brooks Federal Credit Union. I'm already pre-approved. Boom. I'm ready to go. I'm going to offer you this. I'll pay my closing costs. Da, 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 da. Can you write it up? Where in the equation did you give advice and opinion? They didn't become your client. They're driving the deal. Same thing with an investor. I don't need your advice and opinion. I know what I want to offer. I know my numbers, right? Same thing. As long as you don't give advice and opinion, your compensation is not up for discussion. If you chose not to be represented, what you're going to do is on the contract, it's not intermediary because you didn't create a client relationship. You did not give advice and opinion. You're going to check off that you represent the seller only. But your exclusive right to list says 6%, that you're breaking it off 3 and 3, 3 for you as the buyer's agent and 3 for whoever brings the buyer. But it doesn't change the fact that up there it says 6 to our brokerage. That's the reason when the market got real crazy, we had investors stating, "Well, I'm gonna lower the price by because I'm not going to use an agent by your compensation." Okay, my client is the seller. I don't have to answer to you. You chose not to have representation. The compensation is not up for discussion. If you want to lower the price 1,000 or 10,000 or 100,000, do whatever you like. But my compensation is not up for discussion. I wouldn't recommend you go tick for tack with them. They're going to see it at the closing table. I said, I know that you mentioned something about the compensation, but that was not, that's kind of like you having an opinion about what's going on the other side of the city. That's not anything, for you to discuss. I'm sorry, I wasn't at liberty to discuss that with you because who signed my exclusive right to list was the seller. You submitted whatever offer you wanted. I presented whatever offer, but the compensation belongs to my brokerage. Okay.
6%.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Yes, yes. So, does anybody else have any questions? No? How many people do we have? Okay. All righty, guys. So you're getting my perspective on how I want to deal with things. I want to keep you guys in compliance. Like I said, negotiate from a position of strength, not weakness. Max compensation is 8. Sell that as part of your value proposition. What we do is important. A seller needs a realtor, a buyer needs a realtor. You're delivering your highly qualified candidate, and that's the reason that you get compensated. And thank God for the builder community that is our safety net right now. Okay. So give your people options, uphold your fiduciary duty, take care of that old car, and just know that preparation, when it meets opportunity, creates an environment of success. Okay. So prepare yourself. I know that there's an abundance of opportunities that are headed our way. Uh, there is talk of rates adjusting downward by the day, and that will create other opportunities because people will start to put their shoes on and get off the benches and get sick and tired of living with mom, dad, brother, sister, cousin, and will spark the economy. Okay, so get ready. But like I said, what we do is important. Don't give it away. If you need to call me, text me, email me, whatever, have a sit down with me. I'll be more than happy to do that with you. I will continue with this training through August 17th and beyond. There'll be additional videos that I'm going to publish on our YouTube channel. You have emails of everything that we're discussing. And just know that we're here to support you, not only me as your broker, but Mr. Clint, who is our compliance manager, Christina, Alejandra, on the mortgage side, Keith and Augie and Nancy and Melissa. We're here to help you guys survive and thrive this marketplace. Okay. So love you guys. Take care. We'll see you tomorrow for the finance class. Alrighty.